Striving readers can be very noticeable when you start to listen to them read. They tend to be very disfluent. They struggle with the language, the vocabulary. Some will downright reject or avoid doing that altogether. And it has to do with the fact that the text and the instructional approach with those texts probably aren't being responsive to the particular needs of those youngsters or those adolescents. It might be that they have limited experiences, so their prior knowledge and language experiences are limited. But it can also include readers who are listless, disengaged, disinterested, and even illiterate. And that term is an interesting term because it refers to readers who have basic competencies in reading and in literacy but are choosing not to read. So we have a kind of a range of profiles that can fit within that rubric of striving reader. To me, the new mantra is the right stuff at the right level in the right ways. The right stuff means you're giving that student texts that will probably be engaging to him. Okay? The right level means it's at a reading level that that student can access. And in the right ways means you're structuring a learning environment so that the kid can maximize enjoyment and learning from that text.
In small group today, we're going to be working again on directions. We have some game directions, but the game is not mentioned, and there are no numbers next to the directions.
In class today, in the small group situation, which is the teacher-run group, the students have been working on functional text basically all of this quarter. Functional text is basically the type of text that we read frequently. Forms, medicine labels, directions, recipes, telephone books, indices, all types of real-life text. And that's what we've tried to use as much as possible in the classroom.
Remember all we've talked about with directions and how we figure out what goes where. Remember our context clues? You're looking for particular words like, what would be some words that you would look for with directions? If you needed to find out what happened at the beginning of the game, what happened at the end of the game, what might be some words that you might find? First, second, excellent. What else? Last, good. So you're going to look for those types of words. And some of these games you may have played before, but I'm not telling you what they are ahead of time. Okay? So then you and your partner are going to try to figure out what order they go in. Okay? Now after you decide what order they go in, I'm going to ask you how you decided that. Okay? So use that knowledge that you have and try to have that help you.
Today's lesson was a building on the lessons we've been doing all this week, where we've been dealing a lot with directions. And today's activity, I gave them a set of directions to a game that they may or may not have been familiar with, and I asked students in either a partner group situation or individually to sequence those directions. What came first?
We choose a set of 4
matching
colors hats.
Why did you choose that first?
Because you have to get all the game pieces first.
Oh, very good. It sounds like games that you've played before. You have to get all your game pieces out, okay? So, what did you decide was second?
Place your hat in front of you and you're ready to play. All players do the same.
Okay, why did you choose that one next?
Start the game.
Oh, because you're getting ready to start the game. Okay. So are you guys sure about your order, you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to let you look at these. And I started with number 5, actually, and then went down. And then hang on to that paper because we want to talk about it.
What I had the students do is I gave them the paper that had the actual directions on them. And so then they could correct and adjust the directions that they had sequenced. On the paper, however, on the directions that came from the company itself, there were items that I left off of the directions I gave them. And that was one of the questions that, depending again on the group, I ask the partners or the individuals, you know, what was missing in this set of directions. It could be the materials.
Ah, good. There you go. Okay, so now what does this one say? Maybe you should
The
read
next
that one.
player adds a block to the first, second block. There is no penalty if the pile collapses during the first 3 turns. When this happens, the game is over.
So where do you think this might go? That's the very last one? Okay, so what does that first sentence say?
The next player adds
I wanted them to be able to tell me on their own without my prompting, did you notice what was missing? And how could that have affected the directions activity if I would have added it in? You know, the missing information part of that activity.
How many of you have played one of those games before? Okay. Did you see that there was a difference between if you already knew how the game was played and you didn't know that the game was played?
Yes, because the other ones were easy and this one was kind of difficult.
What kind of information was missing from your manipulated directions? What information was missing? Gerardo? The numbers were missing? I know you guys all missed that, huh? Courtney?
What was also missing was the how you win.
How you win? What else? Danielle? The object of the game. Would that have helped some of you in trying to figure out the order of the directions if I would have included the object of the game? Yeah, it was a little more challenging, wasn't it? Absolutely.
Every teacher has to be mindful of ways that they can be encouraging, especially those struggling and striving readers to get into the flow of instruction and, as I said, most critically, to have print experiences.
Teaching children to learn from material that they read is something that teachers need to take seriously, and perhaps each of us needs to think back what we model in our own instruction that helps kids learn more effectively. In my own teaching, one of the things that I've learned in the last number of years is that rather than start with the content information or the textbook or the unit and the outcomes that I want, I need to be aware of where the students need to be, whatever the standards are that they're going to be held accountable for. And then I need to start with the students themselves. I need to find out from them, and they need to be able to find out for themselves what they already know.
Who can tell me something they remember about solving equations? Mauricio.
To solve them, we use inverse operation.
To solve them, we use inverse operation. You remember a lot. Good.
You also use adding and subtracting to get the answer.
You use adding and subtracting to get the answer. Dennis, if you have a problem that has subtracting in it, what do you use to actually solve it?
Math? I mean adding?
Adding. Yeah, you can use math too, but you use adding. Okay, who else? Who else knows something else about solving equations? What do equations usually have in them that aren't numbers?
Ooh.
Beth? Letters. And what are those letters called? Chase? It's called a variable, okay? And that's what all those different things are what we're going to talk about today. Who can tell me some things that you want to know about solving equations? Maisha?
Why do we use them?
Why do we use them? Okay, that's what you guys always want to know. Why we have to learn this, right? Okay, who else wants to know why we have to learn this?
Oh.
Yeah, I figured. Okay, who else is there something specific they want to learn about solving equations? Marvin?
What's an equation?
What is an equation? We're going to talk about that today. Who can tell me, Andrew, you made a good point when we were talking before, that what makes an equation an equation? What was the thing that specifies it?
An equation has an equal sign.
An equation has an equal sign. If it doesn't have an equal sign in it, it's not an equation. What is it called? Yeah? It's called an expression. And that's what we're